Let me talk to you for a moment. Not the version of you that's trying to stay strong. The real one. The one that's tired. The one that's been trying and wondering if any of it is actually working. You're not thinking about giving up because you're weak. You're thinking about giving up because you've been carrying this for a long time. And you're not sure how much longer you can keep going. And maybe nobody knows that. On the outside, you look fine. But inside, you're quietly asking yourself a dangerous question. Is this even worth it anymore? This isn't about pushing harder. It's not about being fearless. And it's definitely not about pretending you're okay when you're not. This is about staying. Staying when it's slow. Staying when it's quiet. Staying when quitting would be easier and nobody would blame you. Because here's the truth most people never tell you. Not giving up doesn't make you a hero. It makes you human. And if you can stay just a little longer, you give life the chance to change. So if you're tired, if you're discouraged, if you're close to walking away, this is for you. Stay with me. Chapter 1. You're not weak, you're tired. Let me tell you something you may not have heard in a long time. You are not weak. If you were weak, you wouldn't have lasted this long. If you were weak, you wouldn't still be thinking about trying again. And if you were weak, you wouldn't be here, listening to this, looking for answers instead of excuses. What you are is tired. Not the kind of tired that sleep fixes. Not the kind that goes away after a good day. This is a deeper tired. The kind that comes from hoping for something to change and watching it stay the same. The kind that comes from effort without reward. From showing up, again and again, without seeing the results you were promised. No one prepares you for this part of the journey. People talk about starting. They talk about winning. They talk about breakthroughs and success stories. But they don't talk enough about the middle. The long, quiet middle where you're doing your best, but nothing seems to be responding. This is where most people don't fail. They simply run out of energy. And when that happens, the mind starts whispering dangerous lies. Maybe I'm not cut out for this. Maybe I waited too long. Maybe this was never meant to work for me. Those thoughts don't come because you're incapable. They come because exhaustion distorts perspective. When you're tired, everything feels heavier. Every obstacle feels personal. Every delay feels like rejection. You start questioning things you never doubted before. Your ability, your worth, even your right to want more. But hear this clearly. Feeling tired is not proof that you should quit. It's proof that you've been trying. And there is a difference between being tired and being done. Most people confuse the two. They think, I feel exhausted, so this must be the end. But exhaustion doesn't mean stop. It means pause. It means breathe. It means adjust the way you're carrying the weight. You were never meant to hold everything alone. And you were never meant to push at full speed forever. There is no prize for burning out quietly. Not giving up does not require you to suffer endlessly. It requires you to stay, but to stay honestly. To admit when you're tired instead of pretending you're fine. To slow down instead of disappearing. To rest without walking away. This is important, so let me say it again. You don't quit because you're weak. You quit because you're exhausted and you don't know another way forward. So let me offer you one. Instead of asking, do I have the strength to continue? Ask, how can I continue without destroying myself? That question changes everything. Because now, staying doesn't mean pushing harder. It means moving differently. It means smaller steps. Lower expectations for a season. Letting progress be quiet instead of impressive. Some days, not giving up will look like doing less than you planned. But more than nothing. And that counts. You don't need to feel powerful right now. You don't need confidence. You don't need clarity. You just need permission to be tired. And still stay. This chapter is not here to convince you to force yourself forward. It's here to remove the shame you've been carrying. Because once the shame lifts, strength has space to return. And it will. Not all at once. Not dramatically. But slowly. Quietly. In a way that lasts. For now, let this be enough. You're not weak. You're tired. And tired people don't need pressure. They need understanding. Chapter 2. Why motivation keeps leaving you. At some point, you probably started asking yourself a frustrating question. What's wrong with me? Why can't I stay motivated? You see other people pushing forward, posting consistently, building momentum. And it makes you wonder why your own drive feels like it comes and goes without warning. Some days, you feel clear and hopeful. Other days, even starting feels heavy. And slowly, quietly, you begin to believe the problem is you. But it's not. Motivation was never designed to stay. We've been taught to treat motivation like a fuel source. Something you're supposed to have before you move. But motivation doesn't work that way. It's a reaction, not a requirement. It shows up when things are exciting. When progress is visible. When effort is rewarded quickly. And it disappears when the journey turns ordinary. That's not a flaw in you. That's how the human nervous system works. When results slow down, the brain stops releasing the same energy. It doesn't mean the path is wrong. It means the novelty is gone. And this is where most people get stuck. They wait. They wait to feel ready again. They wait for the spark to return. They wait for confidence to come back on its own. But motivation doesn't return through waiting. It returns through movement. Not dramatic movement. Not heroic effort. Just enough action to remind your mind that you're still here. Here's something important you may need to hear. Consistency is not built on motivation. It's built on identity. Motivated people act when they feel good. Consistent people act because they've decided who they are. And right now, your job is not to feel inspired. Your job is to decide not to disappear. Some days, that decision will feel easy. Other days, it will feel pointless. But it still matters. Because every time you show up without motivation, you teach your mind something new. You teach it that action is possible even when feelings are messy. You teach it that discomfort isn't dangerous. You teach it that quitting is not the default response to difficulty. That's how mental strength is built, quietly, repeatedly, without applause. Let me say this clearly. You don't need motivation to continue. You need a reason that's deeper than your mood. Motivation asks, do I feel like it today? Discipline asks, am I willing to stay even when I don't? And discipline doesn't mean force. It means commitment without drama. It means doing less, but doing it consistently. It means lowering the bar so you can keep stepping over it. 5 minutes still counts. One small action still counts. Showing up tired still counts. Because staying is more important than speed. If you've been waiting to feel motivated before continuing, this is your permission to stop waiting. Continue without excitement. Continue without clarity. Continue without confidence. Not forever. Just for today. Motivation will come back later. After progress has something to feed on. But for now, let staying be enough. You're not failing because motivation keeps leaving. You're growing past the phase where motivation was ever enough. And that's not a setback. That's maturity. Chapter 3. Staying when nothing is working. This is the part no one prepares you for. Not the beginning, when everything feels possible. Not the ending, when results finally show. But the middle. The place where you're doing the work. And nothing seems to be responding. No signs. No confirmation. No reassurance that you're on the right path. You show up, and the silence answers back. This is usually the moment when doubt grows loud. You start wondering if you misjudged yourself. If you started too late. If everyone else somehow knows something you don't. And the hardest part is this: you can't prove to yourself that staying is worth it. There's no evidence. No guarantee. Just a quiet choice you have to make again and again. This is where most people leave, not because they failed, but because they couldn't stand the uncertainty. The mind hates uncertainty. When effort doesn't lead to visible progress, the brain tries to protect you by suggesting escape. Maybe you should stop. Maybe this isn't for you. Maybe you should try something easier. Those thoughts feel logical in the moment. But they're not signals of truth. They're signals of discomfort. Here's something you need to understand. Progress often goes silent before it becomes visible. Growth doesn't announce itself while it's happening. It happens quietly, beneath the surface, where you can't measure it yet. Skills deepen before they show. Confidence builds before it's felt. Change starts internally before it appears externally. But silence makes it easy to forget that. When nothing seems to be working, you start questioning everything. Your choices, your abilities, your future. And yet, this is often the exact point where staying matters most. Because staying through silence changes who you are. It teaches patience in a world addicted to speed. It builds trust in yourself without external proof. It develops resilience that doesn't depend on praise or validation. Most people only stay as long as they're being rewarded. Few stay when the reward is invisible. And those few, they don't win because they're more talented. They win because they stayed longer than their doubt. This doesn't mean you ignore reality. It doesn't mean you repeat the same mistakes blindly. It means you adjust without abandoning yourself. You refine. You learn. You slow down if needed. But you don't disappear. There is a difference between nothing is working and nothing has worked yet. One sounds final. The other leaves room for time. And time is more powerful than most people realize. Staying when nothing is working doesn't look impressive. It looks ordinary. It looks like continuing without enthusiasm. Like working in private. Like trusting a process you can't fully see. But this is where strength is forged. Not the loud kind. The quiet kind that lasts. So if you're in that space right now, the space where effort feels unanswered, know this? You're not behind. You're not broken. You're not wasting your time. You're in the middle. And the middle is uncomfortable, uncertain, and lonely. But it's also where transformation begins. Stay. Not because you're sure it will work, but because leaving guarantees it won't. And sometimes, that's reason enough. Chapter 4. When starting again feels embarrassing. There's a kind of pain that doesn't come from failure itself. It comes from the thought of starting again. Not because you don't know what to do, but because you remember how hopeful you were the first time. You remember telling people. You remember believing it would work. You remember promising yourself you wouldn't be back here. And now, here you are. Older. More cautious. Less certain. So instead of starting again, you hesitate. Not because you've given up, but because you don't want to feel foolish. Embarrassment is powerful. It convinces you that trying again makes you look inconsistent. That restarting means you didn't learn. That people are watching, even when they're not. But let me tell you something gently and clearly. Starting again is not a step backward. It's a continuation. Life is not a straight line. It never was. We grow in loops. We return to things with more awareness, more restraint, more honesty. What feels like repetition is often refinement. The first time, you started with hope. This time, you start with experience. The first time, you rushed forward. This time, you move with care. Chapter 5. The Quiet Power of Staying. By now, you may be starting to see something differently. Not giving up isn't loud. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't look impressive from the outside. Most of the time, it looks like nothing is happening. And yet, this is where the real work is being done. Staying has a quiet power that most people underestimate. Not the kind of power that shows up in sudden wins or dramatic breakthroughs, but the kind that reshapes who you become over time. Every time you stay when it would be easier to leave, you send a message to yourself. Not with words. With behavior. You say, I can be trusted. You say, I don't disappear when things get uncomfortable. You say, I am someone who remains. Identity is built this way. Not through big decisions, but through small, repeated choices that don't feel important in the moment. Most people think confidence comes first, and action follows. In reality, it's the opposite. You act. You stay. And confidence forms quietly in the background. That's why staying, even imperfectly, changes you. It teaches your nervous system that discomfort isn't danger. That uncertainty doesn't require escape. That effort without applause is still meaningful. Over time, something shifts. You stop asking, is this worth it? And start thinking, this is just what I do. And that shift is powerful. Because once staying becomes part of your identity, quitting stops being your first instinct. You don't need to force yourself anymore. You don't need to hype yourself up. You simply continue. This is how ordinary people become unbreakable. Not because they're fearless, but because they've practiced staying so many times that leaving feels unfamiliar. And here's something important. Staying doesn't mean stagnating. It doesn't mean repeating the same mistakes. It doesn't mean refusing to adapt. Staying means remaining engaged with your life. You reflect. You adjust. You learn. But you don't abandon the path every time it gets uncomfortable. Most growth happens this way. Slowly, without celebration. Like roots deepening underground. Invisible, but essential. And when life tests you again, and it will, you won't panic the way you used to. Because you've been here before. You've stayed before. You know that discomfort passes. That doubt doesn't last forever. That you don't need certainty to continue. This is the quiet confidence no one talks about. The confidence that doesn't depend on success. The confidence that comes from knowing you won't leave yourself. So if you don't feel strong yet, that's okay. Strength isn't something you suddenly feel. It's something you realize you've been building all along. Every day you stayed counted. Every time you chose not to quit mattered. Even when it didn't feel like it. Especially then. But you don't abandon the path every time it gets uncomfortable. Most growth happens this way. Slowly, without celebration. Like roots deepening underground. Invisible, but essential. And when life tests you again, and it will, you won't panic the way you used to. Because you've been here before. You've stayed before. You know that discomfort passes. That doubt doesn't last forever. That you don't need certainty to continue. This is the quiet confidence no one talks about. The confidence that doesn't depend on success. The confidence that comes from knowing you won't leave yourself. So if you don't feel strong yet, that's okay. Strength isn't something you suddenly feel. It's something you realize you've been building all along. Every day you stayed counted. Every time you chose not to quit mattered. Even when it didn't feel like it. Especially then. And you'll know you don't have to obey it. So if you're still here, listening to this, let that matter. Let it mean something. You didn't quit today. You stayed. And staying, quietly, imperfectly, honestly, is how winning actually begins. Not all at once. Not loudly. But steadily. And that kind of win is one no one can take from you. Before you go, let me leave you with this. You don't need to have everything figured out. You don't need certainty. You don't need to feel strong every day. You just need to stay. Stay on the days it feels quiet. Stay on the days you doubt yourself. Stay on the days when progress feels invisible. Because every day you don't quit, you're building something deeper than success. You're building yourself. And if this audiobook spoke to you, if it put words to something you've been carrying quietly, let me know. Leave a comment and tell me where you are in your journey. Your story might be exactly what someone else needs to hear. If you found value here, like this video so it reaches more people who need it. And subscribe to the channel for more calm, honest conversations about growth, discipline, and staying when it's hard. Until next time. Stay. And remember, when you don't quit, you win.